In addition to the near constant budget cuts I saw and several rounds of layoffs, I watched as the magazine's frequency went from 11 issues a year, 10 issues a year, it was 6 issues a year, to 4 issues a year. I saw the end coming up. I'd seen and survived enough to know that, the magazine, it was only a matter of time before it was going to go away. And when it did go away in October 22, you might be surprised to hear me say that I was kind of okay with it. And the reason for that is a couple of reasons. As I just mentioned, I'd long since prepared myself for the inevitable, and I kind of made my end with, or made my peace with the deal with straight as much as I was going to miss him. Also, I took comfort and pride from knowing that myself and the editorial staff really swung for the fences with the final issue of print issue of Field and Street, which ironically happened to celebrate our 125th anniversary. And I was, at the time, was proud of that issue as any I'd ever been a part of that Field and Street. So once that issue was finished, I really bought into the all-new, all-digital version of Field and Stream under Ventures. And for a while, things there were pretty good. Traffic was up, and we're reaching new audiences. But then algorithms changed, and like so many sites, the traffic that we were seeing from the likes of Google and Facebook seemed to disappear overnight. Our response to this? We sort of panicked and just started chasing clickbait. That worked for a little while until the algorithms changed again, and our traffic just plummeted. And ultimately, the SEO team at Recurrent kind of stepped in and started directing more and more of the content that we were publishing. And the topics for the articles came from them instead of the editorial staff. Topics such as the best ski boots, best snowboarding boots, best women's snowboarding boots, best women's combat boots. What is a group of deer called? How big are moose? Spoiler, really, really big. How much does a bear weigh? How much does a grizzly bear weigh? Polar bear versus grizzly bear. Tiger versus bear. What do elk eat? What do turkey eat? What do deer eat? What do deer eat in winter? What do catfish eat? What do bass eat? What do slugs eat? What does deer poop look like? What does bear poop look like? What does raccoon poop look like? That list could go on and on and on. And I honestly don't mean to imply that I or Field and Street are above stories like this. If you're a digital media brand, SEO content like this has to play a part in your content strategy. But eventually it reached the point where stories like this were all you were publishing, and the long-form storytelling that Field and Street had been known for over a century had all but disappeared. And Field and Street, a brand that billed itself as the soul of the outdoors, had lost its it. There was a point last July where I remember going onto the website and I just looked at the talent page and I saw all these stories, all these clickbait news stories, or all these off-brand topics like the ones I just ran through, and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing here? If I'm being honest, I hated my job. That brings me back to the third and final minute of our memory. On a Monday morning, almost a year ago today, last fall, my boss put a last-minute meeting on my calendar on Monday morning, and joining us would be the CEO of the company. Now, the CEO typically didn't join me on these meetings with my boss. So I went into that meeting assuming, as I think a lot of people in my position would, that I was about to be laid off. Instead, I learned that Recurrent was in the process of selling Field and Street. And not only that, but the prospective buyers wanted to bring back print. It took a few minutes for this to sink in, but once it did, I was on cloud editing. I felt like I'd been given a second chance, and it meant that I would soon get to do something that I never thought I'd get to do in my life, get to make a magazine. Now I'd love to imagine. And who wouldn't when you get to be a part of storytelling like this?
There's a quiet song that lives in the heart of anyone who spends enough time outside. And for over a century, Field and Stream gave us the words to go with it. Until one day, the music stopped. For millions of hunters, anglers, and conservationists, the silence was deafening. We'd lost more than a magazine. We'd lost a mentor, a friend. So, when we had the chance to bring Field and Stream back, we took it. At our core, we love the outdoors. Field and Stream told our story. It didn't matter who you were, big game hunter or casual fisherman. Or maybe you just love hiking or being in the water. In these pages, you got the feeling that the outdoors had a place for all of us. From backcountry to front porches, from dusty trails to mud flats, deer stands to duck blinds. Field and Stream spoke to the wild part of us, and along the way got generations of Americans outside. And we'll never forget the weight of that responsibility. Because this world needs more people to silence their phones long enough to listen to the rush of the stream. We need more real intelligence, like how our ancestors knew the land. We need to reconnect. We need things we can touch and hold. Which is why we're proud to reintroduce Field and Stream to its natural habitat, the printed page, with a comeback story on every single one of them. Just as our grandfathers shared their love of the outdoors with us, we believe some things are worth holding on to and passing down, like the traditions we cherish, the stories we tell, and the pages that give them a home. To us, this is a reminder. To you, this is an invitation to join a community, one that went quiet for a time, but never will again.
I had nothing to do with the production of that video, but I'll take it. And I still get chills every time I watch that. Now, I've been in this industry long enough to know and accept that there are so many factors out of my control that could affect or impact the future of Field and Stream magazine. But that doesn't mean I can't do everything I can to make sure that I, and more importantly, our readers, never lose Field and Stream again. And one way I can make good on that is to follow the 10 rules of editing. Now, these rules are kind of sacred at Field and Stream. They were written by former editor-in-chief Sid Evans, who's without question the sharpest magazine mind that I've ever seen at work. And for as long as I worked in an office, I had a printout of these rules tacked on in office and photo. But these days, in the era of remote working, at least Field and Stream, I no longer have a desk, but I keep these rules in my head and in my heart, and I'd like to share them with you today. Rule number 1, be ambitious. With every issue, you have the opportunity to publish a landmark piece of writing that casts a spell over thousands of people. Make the most of that opportunity. Come up with an idea that's so good, you have to devote the entire feature well, or even better, the entire issue to it. Now, of course, ambition goes beyond just magazine making. One of my favorite things we do on the website occasionally are what we call theme weeks, where every day for a week we publish 1 to 2 stories upon kind of a surprising or creative theme, such as drive, or versus, or danger. Newsletters are another great place for ambitious ideas. A few years ago, I pitched and executed a one-off newsletter called the Venison Course. Every day in November, we emailed our deer hunting subscribers a recipe or a cooking tip, and it was so successful that it opened up subsequent one-off newsletters that sponsors got in line to sponsor. And second only to the return of the print magazine, the best and most rewarding, not to mention motivating and inspiring thing about being a part of this new Field and Stream is getting to work with so many ambitious people. For example, our sales team recently announced a big partnership with Gateway. The first of many Field and Stream lodges is about to open up not too far from here in Bozeman. Our licensing team has some really exciting projects in the works, all of which I'm kind of sworn to secrecy on, but maybe we can talk about that next year. And our marketing team just continues to wow me and impress me with all the campaigns they launched. For example, opening day event they kicked off for the celebration of our first issue of the new Field and Stream magazine. And then there's the Field and Stream Music Fest. First of its kind event that I was really excited to recap and chat about today, but unfortunately it was postponed due to Hurricane Helene. In addition to the music, there's going to be fishing, shooting, off-roading. We have artists coming who are going to be on Getting Coolers. Field and Stream members are going to be treated to a surprise concert. It was going to be awesome, and it'll still be awesome when it happens next year. The last thing I'll say on this rule is that anyone who knows me, despite that I'm the editor-in-chief of Field and Stream, knows that I am not, nor do I pretend to be, an expert hunter or fisherman. I love hunting and I love fishing, but I'm not like the foremost expert. That's not how I got my job. I got my job because of the ideas that bring them to the table. Creative, collaborative, and ambitious ideas. Rule 2, be on time. Nothing encourages bad ideas and bad pages like pieces that come in late. Assume you're going to have to rewrite something, then work backwards from there. We have a brilliant art team, but in order to produce brilliant pages, they need time to read, think, and digest, just like you. Now, I'm not going to stand here and pretend like I hit every single deadline. For instance, my last editor's letter came in quite late, something I'm not proud of. This is definitely a rule, and I can work on and getting better at for the rest of my career. That said, I do take a lot of pride in hitting deadlines and getting assignments to artists and writers very early. Why? Because hitting these deadlines makes everyone's life easier and gives them more time to do their best work. And when they get to do their best work, the readers get the best possible version of the magazine. Rule 3, be exact. Great editors are absolutely precise in everything they do, from sentence construction to headline writing to captions. This rule really hit home for me when I was a lowly editorial assistant back in 2005. I was given a story to edit, and after my boss read it for the first time, he called me into his office. I braced myself for a trip to the woodshed, but to my relief, he liked what I had done. And what he was most complimentary about was a short caption I'd written for a tiny sidebar story. His praise meant the world to me, and I've been I've spent the rest of my career chasing the feeling of pride and satisfaction I felt when I left his office. Now, I thought I'd share a couple small examples of exactness, that's a word, or precision that I tried to bring to the first 2 issues of the Field and Stream Journal, specifically on the covers. I knew from the start that I wanted these 2 issues to feel like a matching set, complementary volumes on a bookshelf or a coffee table. One way to achieve that was to have the same artist illustrate both covers, both of which are recreations of classic covers from our archives. I think you've got copies of the first issue on the tables, and if you look in the back cover, you'll see the classic cover that the new one is inspired by. In 2024, Ryan Kirby was that artist. In 2025, we're picking new artists to design those covers. But I was also kind of keen on adding a couple of matching Easter eggs on these covers, which is why you'll notice the pairing of the heaven and hell cover lines on the covers, and that there's a person, a red-shirted person in the background of the covers. Now, it's possible that no one, or at best, very, very, very few people will notice these details. I'm okay with it. The way I justify this, if you're putting this much thought and effort into such small details on the cover, chances are you're putting the same amount of thought, if not more, into getting everything, the bigger stuff, inside the issue exactly right. Rule number 4, push your writers. A lot of average writers have at least one extraordinary piece in them, so find it. Challenge them on bad ideas and encourage them to stretch from good ones. Demand great leads, original concepts, and bold, authoritative statements. Make it clear that you want only their best stuff. Now, I'll be a bit unapologetic in my praise for Field and Stream here. A lot of writers want to have their first piece published in Field and Stream because it's the oldest and best book and roll-up magazine, period. And once they've had that first piece published in Field and Stream, they want to keep writing for Field and Stream because our editors push them further and demand more of them than editors of other book and roll magazines, period. I know this because I've heard some version of this quote from so many writers and editors. You guys are a pain in the ass on edits, but in the end, always give my best work. As an editor, I can't think of a higher middle yet. Rule number 5, be ruthless. Don't get attached to writers, stories, or ideas you know are not good for the brand. If your audience is going to be bored, cut with a band. If an idea isn't working, kill it and move on. If the story is not their best work, don't waste any more time on it. Now, at its most basic level, an editor's job is to help a writer do their best work. And to succeed at that task, it's important for the editor to remind themselves over and over how insanely difficult writing is. And I'm not just talking about the writing process. What I'm also talking about is every time a writer finishes a piece, whether it's a personal essay or a how-to article, they are putting a part of themselves in that story. And the moment they hit send to their editor, they're opening themselves up to judgment. I mean, just hitting the send button with the first draft attached to your editor takes courage. which is why it's so important, I believe at least, to add empathy and mindfulness to the writer's vulnerability. Again, your job is to help the writer do their best for the reader. But in order to do that, there are times when you do have to be ruthless, when you have to slash 1,000 words from a piece you know is too long, but the writer is too close to. When you need to break it to a writer that you had to pull their story at the last minute because an ad came in or an ad was dropped. When you need to be blunt with the writer and just tell them your idea sucks. You do all this hard and ruthless work because your other job as an editor is to do what's best for the reader. Speaking of the reader, rule number 6, be your audience. At Field & Stream, you can't be a good editor if you don't understand your audience, and you can't understand the audience unless you get out into the field or in the stream often. Now this one is harder than a lot might think. You know, people hear that, oh, you work at Field & Stream, so you get to just hunt and fish for a living. Could not be farther from the truth of it. And it's worth noting that these rules were written at a time before social media existed or before pivot to video had entered the lexicon. At the time, the magazine was all that mattered. That is no longer the case. Today, we all have so much to do across so many platforms that it can be really, really challenging to carve out time for ourselves to get outside. But I'd argue that that's why getting outside now is more important than it's ever been. And anytime I need to justify a few hours in the travel stream to my boss, I just tell him I'm going there to work to brainstorm, which isn't a complete lie, because many of my best story ideas have come while I was just sitting on the riverbank waiting for rising trout. Rule number 7, be visual. Think about the photographs and illustrations that might accompany a story. Think about the characters. Think about the color of the fishing lure. Think about the seasoning. All of this informs the piece, and the more you can see the story, the better. And I'll give credit to Field & Stream's editors here. They're always great about coming to meetings with ideas for concepts under the artwork that could accompany their story. But I'd be remiss if I didn't take a minute here to single out and sing the praises of our creative director, Elias Carlson. I mean, talk about being ambitious and exact and on time and knowing your audience and pushing your limits. Elias's talents and work ethic amaze me every single day. Everything we put out, from our web designs to newsletters to video to social media posts, and of course, the journal has Elias's touch on it. Quite simply, he brings our content to life. But he's also a hell of a guy, and I think he would be an awesome keynote speaker at this event next year. You're welcome, Elias. Rule 8, trust your gut. The experts that we rely on can not only be wrong, but bad at rulings. If your gut tells you that something isn't right, it probably is. Likewise, if you get the feeling that there's more to the story, go after it. A quick example on this, several years back, a writer of ours pitched an opinion column in At1 in which he questioned the effectiveness on scent control products that were targeted towards deer crews. His gut told him they were bullshit. Our gut said the same thing. But instead of having him write an opinion piece that people in the industry just could dismiss or say was, complete BS, we told him to run tests to prove whether or not these things worked. So we hired a drug-sniffing dog and put these products to test. The verdict? They didn't work at all. We published the results. People in the industry were pissed, but writers were delighted. We did our jobs. Rule 9, be right. Be ready to defend either a writer or your story to the death. We base our reputation with every issue on whether we get things right or not. And because sloppiness isn't forgiven by readers, isn't forgiven by the staff. This rule brings to mind another interaction we had years back with a bow manufacturer. Well, remain nameless for this. For several years in a row, this company had just been putting out one clunker after another. And we called them out on that in the magazine. Predictably, they threw a fit. Not only did they pull their ad money after we refused to walk back on criticisms, but they even went after the writer, telling him they were going to make it their mission to ruin his career. That didn't happen. He continued on as the best deer hunting writer in the country. In the end, what did happen now is the company secretly took our criticism to heart and wound up completely re-engineering their flagship compound bonus logo. Even though they still hated us, and we kind of still hated them for making things so personal. We gave their new a test, and were so impressed with it that we awarded it the top prize on a renewable test. And why did we do this? Wouldn't it have been more fun to just be ruthless? Yeah, but in the end, the reason is simple. Our readers matter most, and they deserve to know what's best. Rule 10, take chances. There is nothing more boring than a magazine whose site always plays it safe. You shouldn't just be encouraged to take chances, you should be expected to. Now, I'm not suggesting you go to the extremes that the editors of Field and Stream did in 1905 when they put a nude mermaid on the cover. What were they thinking? But I can say this from experience as a magazine maker and a magazine reader. It is fun to take chances with the stories you tell, and it is fun to read stories where it's clear the magazine editors took chances, even when those chances don't quite pan out. Here's a quick example. In June 2015, I pitched and oversaw a big cover story about how to raise kids who love the outdoors. Now, my intentions were good. It's like, hey, let's give tips about how to teach your kids to love hunting and fishing. And wouldn't it be cool if we put a kid on the cover of Field and Stream? We did that. But as soon as the copy of that issue landed on my desk and I reread the story, this sense of dread just consumed me. The initial idea may have been good, but the execution was lacking. The content was soft, the photos were cheesy, and the story overall was just off-brand. Why? Because parents who read Field and Stream are already raising their kids to love the outdoors. I was giving them advice they didn't need. Now that's just one example of an idea that kind of backfired on me. To balance things out here, I could have given you an example of a chance I took paid off. But I decided not to do that in order to drive home this point. If an idea doesn't work out, who gives a shit? Put it behind you and use the time you have between for the next issues to be more ambitious, more in time, to be more exact, to push your writers further, to be more ruthless, to spend more time outside and dream up new ideas, to be more visual, to learn how to trust your gut even more, to be more exact, and yes, to take more chances. Now, in the years since I first read this list, I've come to view the rules of editing as something about a living document, something that can be changed or amended or even added to. And as I worked on the speech, an idea for new Google, number 11, came to me. Take it from someone who worked his way up to his dream job, lost it, and then had it miraculously given back to him 4 years later. Be present. Never stop reminding yourself that there are more important things in life than a fucking magazine. I'd like to thank you all for helping me forge another mid-October memory I'll never forget. Thank you. Okay, I think it's time for questions. There's like a big phone box that they're going to throw at people. Anyone has any questions? It's over there.
Right with that and yeah, like the so.
Good catch.
I'm wondering, with your experience in other colleagues and with magazines, do you feel like the Field and Stream story, rebirth story, is going to countries or other magazines, or is digital the future and print or not?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, you're seeing a lot of brands do this. Field and Stream certainly not the first one on ZMB. First brand to bring back print and to revitalize that. Former co-art for mine, the editor-in-chief of the food magazine called Spur. She's there. They did the same thing. Vice is bringing back print. Onion, thank the Lord, that's bringing back print. I really just think it's kind of a brand by brand basis, and then what you work for each brand is different. I do firmly believe what all these examples of brands revitalizing and bringing back print prove is that people are hungry for this stuff. Like, get off your phones, get off your computers. People want to digest this, content in physical media form. The response we've gotten with the first issue and now with the second issue, which just came out on reader reactions and letters are starting to tweet the office, but like the outpouring overwhelmed me. I had a suspicion that people were going to be excited when print came back, mainly because they came after me on Hellfire when we took it away. But I was taken back by how let's read they were could run it back. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's kind of case by case, but I do know that people want to read stories in that they can hold and keep.
Thanks so much for that presentation. I was looking at the magazine, linked it up off the table, and one thing that struck me is how different it is, in feel and the shape, and at least the, design from Field Extreme I remember when I was a kid, in a great way. I'm wondering when the magazine came back, how did you decide what change, what was?
Yeah. We wanted, essentially, we knew that, it's a good question. We wanted essentially what we wanted to change, kind of the marching orders at least and for me, what I meant is like every single story and every single page needed to be something that you could enjoy reading now, when the issue first came out, but also 10 years ago, or 10 years from now, when you want to pick it up again. Like, if this is a magazine that someone reads and then recycles, I haven't done that job. Like, I want this to be something you keep. Our gear section in the magazine is a good example. It's like, in my opinion, like coverage of new gear reviews has no place, at least in this iteration of the trade, because that's not stuff that's going to be relevant. Forget 5 years from now, like next year, like there will be new products. So like what I'm not interested in, and also when people want to hear, consume gear reviews, they want to do that online, and that's what that content is served. So we wanted to have a gear section in the magazine, and so we approached that with, well, let's tell stories in gear. There's an essay called The Arrington, which is just a story about a timeless piece of gear that's being passed down from their family. There are stories about the best fill-in-the-blank musicians, the best top lower throwers. That these are throwers that stop a couple of artists built this in magazine. So really, our marching orders, what we changed in this version of Field Street Fairville, past versions is that every story has to be timeless, and it's got to be something that has a very long shelf life. Which was as that way.
Thank you. Beautiful piece of good advice. On that theme of timelessness, this is, I don't know, feels like a good question day actually. Field Stream was out sort of as a well-known legacy that you mentioned, and I noticed in the video we talk about the contribution you had to have from your grandfather, and yet you are in a new time in outdoor recreation, time of expansion, quality through people into the fold, closer to society we have, and a lot of connection with gender, identity. How do these field streets as their sort of a legacy is embedded onto fishing, navigating these coming decades of outdoor recreation, welcome new people into the fold, and modernizing their perspective.
So we're trying to do that, a lot of that content on our website, essentially, where we're, stories that are targeted towards first-time, hunters or anglers or just people outdoor recreation who don't know anything, they will know. And so we're giving them, advice on, the best tips, the best gear, the best places to go, advising where they can seek mentorship. And essentially, because I think a lot of those people are, if they're coming to the content rings, they're searching for that content through digital outlets. We were hoping that the website can become something of a resource that they will trust and come back to time and again. And hopefully, the idea is that once Field and Stream as a digital brand becomes a resource they love and trust, that we can then funnel them down like, oh, they've also got this cool little magazine that they're doing. Maybe I'll subscribe to that, and then the magazine becomes a source of these stories that become less about teaching how to do stuff and more about teaching you how to aspire to do bigger and bolder adventures, or to see view trips, or to just be a part of new stories that can live on so long. Now, one more question. You can start that. Thinking about hey, we got one more. That's it. Good. Everybody caught the box.
And it's academic fine point of maybe it didn't say. Thank you. I looked at that. I didn't see any black faces in that video. I'm just curious if that has something representationally and from an editorial perspective you're bringing into the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend we're perfect, and there's so much work that needs to be done there. Yeah, it's very top of mind for us, and it's, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses on when, why that video was lacking, or that, pages in the magazine, why, it's not as diverse as it should be, but that's something wrong where we're trying to live on it. But yeah, it's one more taken.